I know. Yeah, I know you're going to make a joke about this, but you're my ride or die, and I believe that I'm yours. This is where the joke comes in. I know.
You believe you're in my top 5 ride or die.
Right.
You are listening to the new man beyond the Macho Jerk and the New Age Wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Do you feel pressured to get married because you've been with someone a long time? Are you and your partner kicking the can down the road so you don't have to face the reality of your challenges? And how much longer can you tolerate your relationship if it doesn't change for the better? Today's question comes from someone whose relationship is stuck in a rut. Their sex life is boring, they avoid difficult conversations, and he feels pressured to get married even though he has very little desire to commit. Is it possible to get things on a better trajectory? All right, how are you this morning? You look fantastic.
I do.
Yes.
Sometimes you say that and you don't mean it.
You've really stepped up your
Summer helps.
Summer's
You're a
great.
fan of more skin. So
yeah.
more skin being revealed. So
Yeah.
that tends to help how you feel about how I look.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing big comfy clothes.
Well, there's a fine line between big comfy clothes and I'm depressed.
For you, there's definitely a
I
big
don't wanna
fine
leave
line.
the house.
There's a fine line for you. Yes. Yeah. So Here we are again.
Here we are. Do you want to just jump right
Team
in?
Lanier.
Do you want to just jump right in?
I'm happy to talk about whatever. I like you. So I like talking to you about anything.
That's
If
good.
you don't want to jump into whatever you...
I feel rushed. I'm also depressed. I'm grieving. So if I can push those feelings down,
Well,
that would be better off.
you're at least good at distracting yourself from those. But what do you want to tell the audience why you're depressed?
I'm going to cry. Fine.
You're going to cry. You don't.
Yeah.
You're not going to cry.
Yeah.
But I am sad too. But should we? You need to reveal.
We don't
what
know.
happened.
We don't know if this is actually happening.
A beloved family member is in the hospital right now. Is that right?
I think
Potentially on its deathbed.
we're talking about my 21-year-old car.
But it has been a beloved family member.
There's a part of me that's like, are you fucking kidding me, man? You're dying? It's like, it's a 21-year-old car, dude. Let it go.
It's a beautiful 21-year-old car. And it's a 20-year-old car that's in a renaissance right now that everybody wants.
I would never say that everybody wants that car.
Oh, there's a lot of people that want that car.
I think if you deal drugs and you're in the you're between 14 and 25, you like this car. Those are the guys that are approaching me with the hat sideways, like,
Oh, God.
you want to sell that car, man? All right, let's just move on. I'm just getting sad.
Oh, no. You should stay with your
We gotta
sadness for a
figure
minute.
out- I
No,
gotta
this
get
is
some help.
important.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. You got to stay with things
Oh,
because
Jesus.
then you can get through it. You deepen.
Deep
I
in.
feel closer to you. You feel closer to yourself and to me.
It's also just not. It's not. I'm going to get another opinion. See if it's really dead.
Okay.
So, and that person's going to bring it back to life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anything else you want to bring to light other than
Your depressing sadness.
my sad car?
Yeah, there's been a theme. The last time we did this,
Okay.
or it was maybe the last time we did this, you also said you were feeling depressed.
Really?
So maybe there's a theme. Yeah.
Maybe I'm.
Maybe you should
Now
listen
that
to
I'm
your
at this
podcast
age.
and be like, oh my God, for the last 12 months, I've been depressed.
I wouldn't say that I'm depressed about the car. I'm sad. Like, I'm just grieving. I really like that car.
I do too.
And I don't want to buy a new one unless it's going to be really fun. I want a race car. I don't want a car. I want a race car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Because you drive so many places.
I can't
and
say
so
it.
fast.
Hey,
And
guy that's
You
giving
drive
me-
so much.
the broker that's getting me disability insurance right now. I'm not serious about the race car. Let's just. Hey, life insurance guy. I'm not serious.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. All right. I feel like I want to get up and go because I got a busy morning. So,
Okay. All right.
or I've had 2 cups of coffee. All right. I'm going to read this question. Just came in. This is from Will Smith.
He's not. He says he's not that Will Smith. This guy is an AI powered He runs an AI powered beekeeping service, which I thought you would find interesting.
Oh my God.
They use AI to manage the bees.
Like robots?
I don't know. I don't know anything about this. It's just fascinating. Yeah, the bees and the AI work. They're developing neural links and stuff. It's fat.
Well,
have you read that? Did you read that?
No. All I know, there is actually
either,
some technology that you can put in beehives that monitors the hive, and it's not AI, but
shit. So really?
It's not AI, but it monitors humidity, temperature, and weight.
That just sounds like a weather station.
And well, with beekeeping, we don't need to go down this road, but it gives you enough data that over time you can actually predict what's happening inside the hive without ever going in, which is pretty rad because humans going into the hives is kind of the problem.
Yeah, I don't
one
understand.
of the problems.
Anyway, he says, "Hey Tripp, longtime fan, big fan. I've been." Sorry.
Are you laughing because it's Will Smith?
No. It's okay. I've been with my girlfriend for years, and we've been stuck on a plateau. We never fight. We don't really fight, but we also never really talk about any of our problems either. We've become more friends than anything. We don't really have sex anymore. I've been growing a lot over this time. I've been reading books and listening to podcasts. I'm into personal growth and philosophy and some spirituality. I want us to work on our relationship and grow, but she just, when I bring it up, she shuts it down. It's never the right time. She always has something going on, or she's tired from work. I don't want to push her or force her or anything, or force anything on her, but I also don't like that we don't connect. And I also feel pressured to marry her and start a family. Okay. This is very common with people that I talk to.
Yeah.
Can you relate? Do you?
Yeah, I can think of 2 different couples right now that are a version of that is going on as well.
Yeah. So it's all on you. Fix him.
Okay, podcast over. Question answered.
You fix him. Yes. So if I were to distill this, he's on a growth path. They don't really. So it's like there's a mismatch there, and then there's this thing of like not really talking about stuff. So there's like a fear of that, and that's impacting their sex lives, which I know for many people, it's like, if the sex life kind of goes downhill, it's really tough, especially if you're thinking about getting married. You're like, wow, I'm setting myself up for a sexless life.
If they're monogamous, for sure. Yeah, and there's another thread in there, which is the shoulds. Like there's a lot of shoulding going on.
Right. And then we've been together a long time. There's kind of like, I don't want to, I put all this time in. I don't want to just bail because this might be the person I'm going to marry. So it makes it even more difficult to leave. Like I feel like I should, because I've invested all this time in them.
How long did he say how long they were together?
Years. Yeah. So yeah, it's easy to just kind of normalize this. This just becomes normal. And you look at your friends' relationships, a lot of them are stale and no sex, and you hear you and your boys just kind of sit around and complain.
Okay, are we still talking about Will?
I just hear this so much, and it just becomes normalized, and it's sad.
Yeah,
it's really sad.
Yeah.
So what are his options here? There's a communication issue, there's a values issue, and then there's this, I don't want to give up because I put time in issue. I think it's helpful to kind of separate those things. But let's just start with we're not really talking about what's going on. And to me, if I'm in a relationship with someone, even if I'm in a business partnership with someone and we can't talk about things, we can't solve problems, I'm not going to invest more into this. I'm not going to expose more of myself to you or have myself be more vulnerable to you. So that always puts the brakes on.
Yeah. I mean, the image that came to me was like, if we're in a, maybe from a dream, but if we're in an airplane and something happens on the plane and suddenly the plane's going down, we need to know that the people that are in the exit row know how to work the exit door, and we can communicate in such a way where we can help ourselves and each other.
You have hope when the plane's going down that you're going to make it.
I'm not just going to sit listlessly and be like, oh well, like, I'm going to put up a little bit of a fight,
I'm going to be screaming. I love how you're like, it's cool. We're nose diving into the Atlantic, but we're gonna work through this. Let's get a plan together, guys.
Well, I was trying to come up with the analogy of like, if you're in a situation, he's talking about just day to day, things are probably relatively okay in their lives. But if some shit hits the fan, they're actually going to need to communicate.
Right.
Like there's going to be times where they really need to communicate. And so that was my,
It's really easy in these scenarios to put all of the focus on the other person and what they're not doing. Yeah. And it's when I work with people that are in this situation, I have them take 100% responsibility for the dynamic. So if they don't like the dynamic, there's something about what they're doing that contributes to it.
Or what they're not doing.
Right. And so the first thing that I say is like, let's just take this relationship. Let's act like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's a mental exercise. This relationship doesn't exist. So if we were going to map out your ideal relationship, what would the sex life be like? What would you guys talk about? How often would you talk about things? How would you deal with problems? Like I just map that stuff out. Mm-hmm. And usually just doing that, they can start to see how far apart where they are and where they...
Well, they also get in touch with their desire beyond, I want this. So because there's a lot of people out there that want it and then have absolutely no idea how to go about it or even how much they want or what it might look like. And so then they just sit with their want in quiet desperation.
Well, there's also this like, I'm not allowed to, I've given up on kind of clarifying what I want because I've been focused on how do I make something work with this person. Yeah. When in actuality, it's like you got to bring your power to it. You got to have to be very clear about what we want in a relationship. Bring that forward, and this is true in a business relationship. This is just true across the board.
Across the board,
that we bring what we want to the table, even if it might be a little challenging to the dynamic or to the relationship. But for a lot of us, we give up on that because it's like, well, I don't think this can happen, so I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to shut it down. So I like to help guys get in touch with what they want, even if they don't think it's possible. Mm-hmm. And that could be really scary. And for some guys, they're just like, yeah, this is never going to work. And I'm like, well, let's try. Like, let's bring this to the table, and not in an ultimatum, but in a, hey, here's what I see possible. Here's what I would love to have. Here's the relationship I would love to have, the sex life I'd love to have. Yeah. I'd love for us to travel. I'd love for us to be able to talk about these things. If a problem came up, I would want us to deal with it head on, XYZ. What about you? Would this interest you? And invite them into that. And then they break up.
Walk away. And then they're too busy to talk about it. They walk away.
I'm kidding. I mean, but at least there's this, I always want someone to have peace of mind. Like, if you're going to
like, at least I spoke up kind of thing.
Well, even it's like, if I'm staying in the relationship, I want peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And if I'm leaving the relationship, I want peace of mind.
Yeah.
Like, I never want to look back and be like, I could have done this or I could have done that. So it's like, all right, well, what does it look like to just have peace of mind? I spoke up. I invited the person.
I did everything I could do, or I tried everything I knew to try, and I even got help to try things that I didn't know to try.
Yeah, and it's not, I think the mistake is you better do this or we're out, or and then the person feels like, oh geez, I have to do this or else you're out. I think that's kind of that could be sticky too. But
I mean, it is sticky, and it's important that you named that, because that's what goes on in a lot of people's heads.
What do you mean?
Can I keep doing this? It's sort of like, this isn't the relationship that I want the way that it is. So, or the marriage or the whatever. So can I keep this up? The question often is like, I don't know if I should stay with this person. In my case too, when I say in my case, meaning the people that are actively going through this in my experience, they don't want anybody else. They want to be with the person that they're with.
Now, why? Because this is not
Because
working.
they love them.
Oh.
They've been together for decades. And so...
Well, let's separate that, because there's I love this person, and I think this is interesting to separate the dynamic from the relationship. Like, I can love this person.
Absolutely.
And deeply love them.
And there's lots of the dynamic that does work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? So there's many things that do work.
Okay.
And then there's pieces that don't. Okay. So, but I think maybe we should, I like that you're distinguishing that, but I think the thing that is common, the common thread for all of no matter sort of the nuanced differences between your Will and who I'm talking about is avoiding the uncomfortable, hard, unfamiliar, new territory of talking about things that we don't like, going through something hard and knowing how to navigate that in a way that's not hurtful or too overwhelming, and also come out in a better place. Come to the other side in more close, more in love, more connected.
Well, let's say Will. Let's come back to Will's situation, because his girlfriend won't even talk about things.
Right.
So, and let's put it back on Will. Let's have him take 100% responsibility, because he said he doesn't want to force her. Intuitively, I'm listening to this. He's not being firm. Like, we need to have this conversation. He's just like, oh, okay, later on then. Like, right. There's another time, but he's not speaking why this is important to him. I wonder if there's a way for him, we could help him be more firm and transparent on his end, because he's not being direct either.
Yeah.
So how can he bring her to the table, or invite her to the table where they both can have that conversation without being forceful? That's his fear.
Right. So, and we don't know why he's afraid of being forceful. He just doesn't want to be a bulldozer in that kind of way, or
I would guess so. Yeah, I would say it's like, I don't want to. Well, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? What's your
the reason I'm asking is, usually the consideration, like there's consideration happening there, like in the dynamic. The reason he's not showing up in that way is that he's taking her, like in this case, he's probably really. I'm just projecting. I don't know what's true here, but what's often true is that they're taking the other person's kind of interior world into consideration. So it's actually comes from a compassionate place, I think.
And nice guy syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, it's like. It comes from maybe like nobody's. It's the whole thing of avoiding being uncomfortable.
Right.
So I just want to come back to that, because this piece around why I asked that was that I actually have a lot of compassion for his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. There's something going on with her that would have her be that way, and so it's like. It's big enough to where she's willing to not have the relationship she wants, because everybody wants deep bonds, lots of love, lots of, great desire, being desired, all of that. Like, everybody wants a great relationship. I don't know anybody that doesn't want their relationship to be great. And so there's something going on with her that would have her be willing to not go there. And so that's big. Whatever that thing is big enough in her world to like put it all, to really risk losing it all.
I think it's to be said that a great relationship also requires a lot of accessibility and vulnerability. Like, there's got to be a lot of transparency there. So
no question.
If her commitment is to avoid that and avoid discomfort, then she's cutting herself off from that.
Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, if we see it from a compassionate place, there's something going on that she is really protected. Like, she's protecting some very scary place for herself.
Right.
And so I think that in a relationship, even if you don't know the other person, I mean, we're intelligent, sensitive humans. Most of us, not all of us, but it's like, even we might not know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
But most of us have some sort of we can gather that might be something like that might be going on with another person, even if we're frustrated about it.
So, it's not like she's just being an asshole.
Yeah, she's not. Right, exactly.
Right.
And even if she were, I mean, it's a little bit harder to find your compassion there. But even when people are assholes, there's something going on there too.
It's fear. Yeah, it's a vulnerability.
So anyway, but so there's, like him being firm or not being firm. Or what was it, forceful? He was worried about being forceful.
Worried about being forceful. And I've got an idea for that, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's places for couples, when they're getting along, when they're what had them kind of come together, when they feel their love for each other. I think he can tap into his authentic care for her and care for them as a couple. And he could be coming from that place, and that would help him not feel like he's being forceful.
Right.
He can still be really honest, and he can still stick to his guns about what he has to bring there.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, "Hey, this matters to me. This is I get that this isn't a good time." And I also want to just, as a side note, people get tired after a long day of work. The end of the day usually is not the right time to bring up big conversations. And for years, I mean, who knows? Maybe she's a nurse and she's working crazy hours, and so it's like there are some factors. It's like you want to curate your experience here. So the whole being firm is important, but also be smart about it. Like, make sure you're fed, you're slept. Pick a time. If now's not the good time, then make an agreement that you have a time when you're both wide awake. You're not exhausted from something else. You know, it's like, figure it out. Be persistent.
Yeah. And that's different than being forceful, which is you just walk in the room, she's had a long day, and you're like, we're talking about this now. And you don't have a choice.
That's not going to work.
But it is like, okay, if not now, then when?
Exactly.
And staying on that.
And also, there can be the firmness, and also, this matters.
Yeah,
I care about this. I care about us. We've talked about marriage. We haven't talked about marriage. We've avoided the conversation of marriage. We've been together for this long. Life is happening.
Yeah.
And we got to nail this down, one way or the other. We got to figure this out. And so when can we talk about this?
Yeah, I think it's important to nail the impact, because if I'm asleep at the wheel and I'm tired and I just want to avoid discomfort and I just want to avoid vulnerability, then it's so easy to keep kicking the can down the road. I'll get to it later. I'll work out later. I'll take care of the bills later. I'll do XYZ later. I would just get into that mode of later. And we don't realize that credit card bill in our psyche is just getting bigger and bigger. If we become aware of the impact, if we become aware of what's actually happening, like every time I kick this down the road, what's the impact it's having, we can wake up to it. And I often want to encourage guys to say, hey, look, when we don't talk about this, here's the impact on me. I get concerned. I feel less connected with you. I feel less open to you. And it's like that there's a cost to this behavior.
Absolutely.
And it's not okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard some people well, I don't want to guilt her into this. And I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I don't think it's guilting if I'm simply saying when we avoid talking about our problems, or we avoid talking about what's not happening in our sex life, I get scared, or I feel closed. I want to close myself off to you. I don't feel like that's guilting. I feel like that's being transparent. And I want to feel open to you. I want to feel excited with you. Can we please talk about this? And when is a good time to talk about this?
Surprising no one, I'm going to say it's how you talk about that's going to lead to guilt or not. So everything the way that you described it, you only took responsibility for your feelings.
Right.
And you didn't say, you're doing this to me because of you, I'm this way, or we now are this because you won't ever XYZ. So that's very important. The language is very important, and I think that's why a lot of people avoid it, is because they don't know how to talk about it without causing wreckage. So and just compassion, like everybody's got their layers of shit anyway. So even if you're like the most skillful person and you use like non-adversarial language and all of that, like they're still going to have all of their crap, probably from previous relationships that where the last person wasn't skillful, or parents that guilted them or whatever, like there's just going to be layers of shit. So that's the firmness. That's where the firmness really comes in handy, because no matter what is happening over there, the person that's bringing what they need to bring is going to stay with themselves enough to like weather whatever discomfort, hardship, storminess is coming from the other side. It's staying steady through the reactivity in service of getting a response.
Right.
So and people will feel guilty. I mean, we've had times, you and I, where you've wanted more of something, or I've needed more of something or wanted more of something. And it's
my back hurts sometimes, baby. I can't just keep. Anyway,
your back hurts from fucking?
Yeah.
I would think that your shoulders and hips are what hurt the most.
Well, I'm not in pain, so I had to make something up. But all right, shit went off the rails.
I've totally forgot where we were in this conversation.
They're probably still going to feel guilty, and you were saying that in our dynamic, there were places where I was not getting enough of something, or you were not getting enough of something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, we care about each other. We want to be together. We want to work things out. Like we want things to be good.
There's a shared desired outcome.
There's a shared desired outcome. And also it's like we're together. Like I know you're going to make a joke about this, but you're my ride or die. So it's like, and I believe that I'm yours. This is where the joke comes in.
You believe. You're in my top 5 ride or die.
Right. So, but the reason I'm saying that is that I'm thinking about his inquiry where he's like, we've been together a long time. Kind of like we've put a lot into this already. And so when you bring something to me and it's really uncomfortable, or it's like, there's sort of a story of like, I don't want to let you down. I don't want to fail you here. And I feel like I'm failing you somehow.
Well, it's true. Like in this scenario, right? Not talking about
right. Yeah. I mean, it is
failing
true.
the relationship.
And so there's that hard, uncomfortable place. And so a person may feel guilty. They might also feel really defensive because they're not able to feel the harder feels.
Right.
Or angry because they're not able to feel the harder feels. And so it's just, my point is like, you're probably going to feel all the things. That's why most people avoid it, because they have a hard time being with the discomfort.
I think there's are we going to prioritize truth telling in our relationship? And truth telling doesn't mean that we willfully hurt one another with our judgments. I think that's different. Like, I'm just telling the truth. You're a bitch. Like that's not the truth.
Right.
Like but the truth is I when we don't do XYZ or when this isn't happening, it impacts me. Yeah. I'm not okay with it. That's truth telling. And so are we going to prioritize the truth, or are we going to prioritize keeping the peace, like where we just kind of maintain this thing? And I think that's a very big fork in the road. Because a relationship that prioritizes the truth means we're willing to get into some uncomfortable conversations. That's whereas Will's relationship has been shown to prioritize, let's just avoid the discomfort, and we'll just kind of have to sit with this the suffering that goes along with that.
Yeah, and what you say about going along with the status quo, I mean, that also points to the shoulds, like, oh well, I feel like I should get married. Like we should get married. We've been together for a certain amount of time. This means we should get married.
If that's your reason for getting married.
Well, that I know that when you read his thing, the first thought, the very first thing in my mind was like, wait a minute, does he want to get married? But I want to name that because that's also going along with the status quo.
Right.
So there's a whole lot here about
there's what should I do versus what
they're going along with, what both of them are going along with, not just from, their own like their own together couple dynamic, but from larger dynamics that they've been kind of,
This maps up with that developmental shift that happens in our later 20s and early 30s, which is, we've talked about this before, but there's like this. We're following a script to a large degree early on in our life. I'm going to jump through the hoops to get through school and take care of myself. And we look outside of ourselves a lot for those cues. That's natural. It's part of our.
It's also
we're wired to
we're
do it.
Saturated. We're literally marinating in the shoulds from the time we're born up until we become our own people.
So we can allow ourselves to fall asleep in that. And when it comes to these bigger questions about the relationship we should be in, the sex life we have, when we get married, the type of person we would marry, why we would marry them, all that, we could be stuck in that should. We're following the convention. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. And for some people that works, perhaps.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. If we continue to develop, we don't get stunted there, we start to ask that question, who am I really?
Thank you, Dewey Freeman.
Yeah, thanks to Dewey Freeman. So it's like, who am I really? And that is where we start to break away from the conventions and the shoulds.
Mm-hmm. And for the woo-woo people, that's your Saturn return.
Holy shit. Did you really just say that on my podcast?
I did. All the women that listen are going to be like, go girl, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm not a starry person, but it actually does map really well with the who am I really, because it's the process, the 20s to the 30s, and it's like the tail end, like really into when you're creeping into the 30s, and the traditional traditional, I guess, culture, we'd say, or whatever, would be like my biological clock, right? Science or wherever that fucking shit came from. So it's like, this is my biological clock is ticking. And so it does become a bit of a pressure cooker in that period of time, that window.
Okay. So moving into this next phase is really, instead of what should I do, it's what do I really want? What genuinely works for me? And I talk about this, like, where do I feel more free, more alive, more at peace, more loving and connected? Because following the rules, jumping through hoops may have me feel comfortable. It may bring a certain amount of certainty and acceptance, but I won't feel alive there. I won't I may have the wife and all this stuff, but I actually don't feel free. I don't feel alive. I don't feel at peace. And I can be with somebody. I don't feel connected to them.
That's right. Yeah.
So moving into this, what do I really want, or what do I stand for? These deeper questions, that means we've got to be willing to be more honest with ourselves, be willing to go into discomfort, go into uncertainty, go into like, who am I to start to live this way that I want to live and break from convention? Yes. And that natural shift there. We might be coupled with somebody while we're making that shift. Yeah, that's true. And that can be, and they may not be on the same path. Yeah. And it's important to recognize if that's happening, and that one person's not right and one person's not wrong. It's just, we're just on different paths there. And I think that's really helpful, instead of like trying to build a case and here's why we should do this or why we should do this. Like, just starting from, this is what's happening for me. And ultimately, I want to be with somebody who's on a similar path or has a similar value and a similar philosophy. Maybe.
I mean, I want to be really clear. Not every couple has to have similar interests and paths and likes. I think that they can be really different and still be a couple.
I think, what about values, though?
I think values need to map up somewhere,
That's
but
what
I
I'm
don't
speaking
think
to.
they have to be everywhere.
No.
So it's like, I remember Gabby, Laird Hamilton's
Okay.
wife. She wrote a book, and in that book there were a few things that I took from that book, but one of the things that I really loved was she was talking about your deal breakers and everything else being workable. So deal breakers, I would put to values and really certain values. So in her book, she was like, pick 5, like tops 5. Everything else is workable. And I love that, because there are some core values, like a couple maybe that's been together that has sort of gone through the marriage and kids thing. Parenting is probably going to need to be a core value, how they parent their children.
How they parent, right.
And
Yeah.
so that's going to be a deal breaker for people.
Right. How we deal with conflict. Do we hide from it? Do we deal with it? How we deal with...
But there are people out there that are fine not ever dealing with conflict, so that might not be a value for them. I know it's not for you. I'm saying that the reason I'm saying this is that if we want to really help Will, we don't know who he is. We don't know what his values are. So if we really want to help somebody, the idea, like, yes, everything that we're saying is helpful to a person, can be really helpful. But the first thing is getting them to be really clear and honest with themselves.
Yes.
They have to, like you're saying, clean up their side of the street. So they have to know that first.
Right.
So that might take some time and energy, and not just like, ooh, I'm doing all this cool personal development stuff and I'm feeling so good and I'm learning other cool things about myself. But they still might have not done that part of the work in terms of how they want to be in a partnership.
Right.
So that has to happen in order to be able to know, is this also important in the we space, in the partnership, in whoever I'm with? Do I want this also? Does this matter enough to me here with you as it does to me with myself,
right,
or with my job or with my kid or whatever?
Okay.
So I do think that that's important to it's nuanced, but I think that it's important, because I don't think that, I know plenty of people that can have some level of intimacy without that level of radical honesty. It does feel radical to people that haven't been doing that deep honesty. Mm-hmm. So they figure it out. Like they figure it out. They make it work. So it might not be yours and my ideal situation, but our job is to find out what's their ideal situation and help them reach it.
Okay. So let's zoom out. You got to be honest with yourself first and foremost.
Absolutely.
This isn't working, or this is working, or whatever. Yeah. And stop making excuses for yourself.
Yes.
I like the idea of taking 100% responsibility. Where am I in my life? What is my yes in my life? And that can be really scary, because
Absolutely.
I don't know if it can happen. It
Sure.
might seem
you
selfish.
might not know what your yes is without trying some shit out.
Right.
You know?
But it's taking responsibility and not expecting your partner to be the person that checks those boxes for you. It's gotta come back to you. What do I want for my life? Even if this person wasn't in my life, what would I want for my life? And you can kind of go around Ken Wilber's 4 quadrants, or do a basic 360, whatever that is.
Yeah.
This is what I do with my guys.
Yeah.
And then from that place, it's learning how to be skillful.
Yeah.
You might just realize this isn't going to work, or it could be learning to be skillful with naming the impact. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where having a third party can really help.
Absolutely.
To navigate this stuff, because if you're coming from a heart-based place instead of a accusatory place.
Absolutely. Learning non-adversarial communication is super helpful with this stuff.
Really helpful to have a third party there. But and the invitation is, here's the thing that I want, here's what I see possible. What about you? There's that invitation of a different life and a different way of being, and it would invite challenge. It would invite discomfort.
It absolutely will.
Uncertainty at times. For sure. Right?
But it's like, if a person has done that sort of pre-work, mm-hmm. then when they turn towards the discomfort, it's sitting inside a much larger container. It's actually sitting inside of a container of love and integrity. So it's like, then there's like, this ship is going in this direction. And And yes, we're going to hit some rocky waters, but we're doing this. We can do this. And I've got the drive to do this. And that can sometimes really help pull a person outside of their own smaller world that they're defending.
I did a version of this in a relationship years ago, and I was guilty of the should I stay or should I go? And this person's not meeting me here and there. And I wallowed in that for years and was making it about her. Anyway, when I took responsibility, followed this, what we're talking about here, got really clear about what I wanted. It didn't seem like I didn't even know if it was possible, but I wanted that peace of mind. If I'm staying in the relationship, I'm going to commit to this person. I want peace of mind. I want to feel good about it. If I'm leaving, I want to feel good about it. I'll be heartbroken and sad, but I'll feel like that was the right thing to do. And I wanted to, that was the aim, instead of how do I just avoid feeling bad? And so when I spoke to this or when I got really in touch with this and I brought it to her, I remember dropping all of the, God, if only that agitation I had with her. And I remember just being very accepting of like, this is who you are and this is who I am, and nobody's the bad guy here. And I remember I felt so much more open to her and accepting, and that felt good.
Yeah.
Instead of, gosh, if only you'd done this, we wouldn't be in this shit right now.
Yeah. And there's two things I want to interject real quick, because you talked about wanting peace of mind. And I think that most people that are in this situation confuse not doing those hard things, not going into those uncomfortable places as what gives them peace of mind.
All right, let's talk about the difference between peace of mind and comfort, because peace of mind is doing the uncomfortable thing. I talk about it in the book where it's like, if I've got a toothache, I can slug back some whiskey and an Advil and maybe get some relief, get some comfort.
Right.
I still have a rotten tooth. I still need to take care of this tooth. It has not gone away. It has not healed itself.
Yeah, that's good.
The peace of mind comes from, I'm going to go to the doctor.
It might be uncomfortable. It might be
really
shitty.
uncomfortable.
It might be expensive.
Right? But it's getting handled.
Yeah.
It's not festering anymore. This thing's not rotting in my mouth anymore. There's peace of mind there. So, yeah, it's not the easy road that provides peace of mind, but it's that we're going to handle this thing and not let it fester.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a great compass heading. Where's peace of mind either way? Instead of I have to convince myself to be with this person, or I have to convince myself not, and I'm always looking in the rearview mirror, what if this and what if that? Like, cool, it'll be difficult either way.
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging either way. There's no easy road here.
For sure.
But there's a way to do this. And if we follow that and get some help. We get help for a plumber.
Yeah.
Like, get some help with this. And,
for sure.
And a lot of it is really about cleaning up your side of the street instead of focusing on them.
And getting help. I mean, like, people don't do it because they don't know how. So it's like, great, get help then.
Why would you know how to do this? Your parents probably didn't know how to do it, and their parents didn't know how to do it. You grew up in that environment.
This kind of stuff. Nobody teaches this kind of stuff until now. Like, there's podcasts now, relationship teachings, and people that are more able to teach what they've learned in schools about this. But there's no school. There's no school that when anybody was growing up, it's not like you're going to do your maths and your language and your reading, your writing, and that sort of thing. And then you're also, by the way, going to learn how to be in relationship with others and the world and business. And, like, nobody's, go get help.
You were really spicy today.
I was spicy today?
I'm going to have to cut some. I'm cutting some things out.
That means I gave you more work to do.
All right. Thank you.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.